I chose to go to Job Corps when I was 17. I have actually been living on my own since I was 16. I came from um, a home that was extremely broken at the time, and I kind of knew that I needed an education, and I wasn't a rebellious kid. I just had a very difficult home life. And I was homeless for a while, and I was staying, with various friends, and and it was an imposition basically on their families. But I had a few of my, amazing friends who I'm still friends with today. They took me in, but I was going nowhere really fast, and I wound up dropping out of high school because um, trying to survive and go to school were two very difficult positions to be in. So I had heard of a friend who had signed up to go to Job Corps, and the explanation was, these are these people that work with the federal government, and they afford kids like me with an opportunity for an education with housing, and essentially it was stability. So I went down to the local office and signed up for it, and I had never really been out of the town. So when I moved to Albany, New York, for me, that was a big city. So it was a bit of a cultural shock, but it was nice. I had made some uh, amazing friendships, and some of those friendships I actually still maintain today. And some are nurses, and we went in, and I honestly, I the only thing I knew I wanted at that point in time was that I needed my GED, because I felt like that was important to me, coming from a family where no one really graduated high school, nobody really had a college education, um, and they were fine with that, but that wasn't fine with me. So I, met with our counselors, and Edie Ireland, I remember her name. She was the guidance counselor that helped me, but I chose medical assisting, and my um, my choice was perfect because I was introduced to Marianne Harvey, and she was the instructor, and we're friends today on Facebook. So we really still, even 30 years later, we still keep in touch. But she was always there to gently push me along. And once I started, I really thought, I could really see myself progressing. And I finished the medical assisting. I got my GED, and I did the EKG certification. I finished the program, and shortly after that, I had become pregnant and had a child very young, so education got kind of put on hold. But the fire was lit, and I actually found out with Mrs. Harvey when I was pregnant for my first child. And I could see the look of kind of disappointment, and I felt like I had kind of not just let myself down, but I let her down. And I quietly made a promise that this wasn't where my story was going to end. And it wasn't. And so we just got through those hurdles. And I did begin working as a medical assistant after I had the baby. Then the fire was relit, and I just knew over time that it was something I needed. And after 3 children in 13 years, I decided that I really needed to focus on me because my path was going separate. And I separated and found myself alone with 3 children, and I thought I really need to kind of focus again. And I kind of drew back to that day with Mrs. Harvey and the conversation that we had had, where she kind of really said to me that this doesn't have to be the end of my story, that I get to write my own book, and I get to write my own chapters, and I decide how it ends. So I did. I worked 3 jobs, 7 days a week, and then let go of one of the part-time jobs and went to nursing school full-time with 3 children. And then I met now I call him my forever husband. And we had, I had the support to really push me through. We eventually had a child of our own, and she came to my nursing graduation. And then I proceeded, and I still was, it was like a train on a track with a mission. And I'm still on that track. And so I finished my bachelor's and finished my master's and am now pursuing my DNP.